What if the heartbeat of an entire civilization wasn't carved in stone, but echoed through the sound of cattle bells rolling across an endless plain? From the winding Nile to the wide grasslands of Kenya and Tanzania, a migration began that would last 1,000 years. It shaped languages, politics, and beliefs, and it all started with people chasing the promise of rain. This is the story of the Nilotic peoples, the Dinka, the Maasai, the Luo, warriors and wanderers whose footsteps stitched Africa together. Stay with us, because their legacy may just change how you see civilization itself. Long before kingdoms like Buganda or Aksum rose, the ancestors of the Nilotes lived along the White Nile floodplains of what is now South Sudan and Northern Sudan. Lands of reeds, papyrus, and life-giving waters. As climates shifted and rival clans multiplied, the once gentle river turned unpredictable. Droughts hardened the soil, floods swallowed villages, and families faced a choice: fight for shrinking land or move toward the unknown south. Among them was Akal, a young Dinka herder whose nights were filled with the glow of campfires and stories of gods who rode the thunder. When the cattle began to die, Akal's father gathered his family and joined a caravan of herders walking toward greener horizons. They carried spears, gourds of milk, and songs older than memory. Their journey wasn't just escape. It was faith in motion. The herders followed rivers like living veins, leaving behind a homeland yet carrying it within them. From Akal's steps would flow the migrations that seeded new societies across East Africa. To the Nilotes, cattle were life's compass. A man's worth, a woman's dowry, even a prayer's rhythm, all traced back to the herd. Among the Dinka, cows were given names that matched the color of clouds or the sound of rain. Boys composed songs for their favorite oxen, praising their horns like warriors' crowns. To touch a cow's hide before battle was to borrow its spirit. The Maasai believed their god Nkai had gifted all cattle to them at creation. Protecting a herd was both duty and divine covenant. Akal's coming of age marked his initiation into the age-set system, where bravery and wisdom determined a man's honor. Older warriors taught him to read the land, to find water by the flight of birds, to sense danger in silence. Unlike their Bantu neighbors, who farmed fixed soil, Nilotic peoples moved with the seasons. Their society valued adaptability above possession. Everything, family, faith, and future, walked on four legs. But balance was fragile. What would happen when the herder's world of motion met the farmer's world of permanence? Could trade prevail over tension, or would blood and pasture decide fate? By the late 1st millennium CE, around 800 to 1200 CE, Nilotic groups like the Luo reached Lake Victoria. Here, Akal's descendants met Bantu farmers and Cushitic traders, and the great blending of East Africa began. European explorers centuries later called the Maasai the Spartans of Africa. But they overlooked the truth. The Maasai were not just warriors, they were diplomats and economists of the savannah. They bartered ivory for iron, milk for millet, and sealed alliances through the exchange of cattle and kin. In a continent often misrepresented as tribal and chaotic, the Maasai quietly built networks of peace and trade that stretched for hundreds of miles. The Luo, too, adapted, balancing herding, fishing, and trade. Their mixed economy birthed communities fluent in both Nilotic and Bantu tongues. Luo leaders such as Jaramogi Oginga Odinga and his son Raila Odinga, who recently passed in October 2025, would later draw from this legacy of unity and resilience to shape Kenya's modern political identity. When the Maasai expanded south into the Rift Valley between the 15th and 17th centuries, they displaced and absorbed Cushitic groups. From them they adopted new rituals, refined age sets, and even borrowed vocabulary still found in Maasai speech today. What outsiders saw as conquest was, in truth, cultural symbiosis, a human ecosystem evolving in rhythm with the land. For the Nilotes, the divine grazed beside them. The Dinka called their sky god Nilotic. The Maasai prayed to Nkai, whose thunder could bless or destroy. Rain was worship, cattle smoke was incense, and harmony with nature was salvation. Every ritual reinforced the belief that humans and animals shared one breath of life. When a warrior died, his favorite ox was slain to guide his soul across the cosmic river. Elders said its spirit would wait for him in the next world. horns gleaming like crescents of the moon. Colonial missionaries once dismissed these rites as superstition. They never realized they were witnessing a theology of balance, an understanding of ecology and morality intertwined. To whisper to a cow beneath starlight wasn't madness, it was gratitude. It was the sound of man speaking directly to creation. By the 19th century, the Nilotic horizon darkened under empire. The British coveted Maasai grasslands for settlers. Colonial administrators carved artificial borders that split clans and disrupted migration paths thousands of years old. Missionaries sought to baptize the herders, trading sacred songs for hymns. Epidemics from imported cattle decimated herds, and droughts followed. Yet through every crisis, the Nilotic spirit refused extinction. Legends told of Akal's descendants still walking, herders who remembered his journey, carrying ancestral ashes from camp to camp so the past would never vanish. In 2011, history turned once more. Salva Kiir Mayardit, a Dinka born to herders in 1951, became South Sudan's first president. In his wide-brimmed black hat, he carried the dust of the cattle camps into the world of diplomacy. The boy from the river's edge now led a nation back to its source. Today, the Nilotic rhythm beats like a hidden drum. The Maasai, draped in red shukas, guard traditions even as they guide tourists through their ancestral lands. The Dinka, Nuer, and Shilluk maintain cattle camps amid conflict, their songs of endurance echoing through hardship. The Luo fill cities with art, politics, and poetry, bridging ancient heritage with modern vision. Across Kenya and South Sudan, young artists remix age-old chants with Afrobeat and hip-hop, turning oral history into rhythm. Heritage schools teach Nilotic languages once thought lost. Elders record folktales for digital archives, preserving their wisdom for the next century. Our songs carry the Nile's whisper, even when the cattle are gone. But challenges remain: shrinking pastures, climate change, and the pull of urban life. Still, like the Nile itself, the Nilotic legacy bends yet never breaks. From the Nile to the Serengeti, they carried no empires of marble, no armies of conquest, only courage, cattle, and memory. Their monuments are not pyramids but people. Their scriptures are written in rhythm and dust. So here's your challenge. What's your cultural cattle? The tradition your ancestors prized above all? Tell us in the comments. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for our next journey. Bantu farmers versus Plains warriors, the real East African clash. Because history isn't a relic, it's alive in every drumbeat, every footprint, and every whispered prayer beneath the stars. And somewhere on the African plain, Akal's descendants still walk, guardians of a story that began with a herd beside the Nile and still moves, endlessly, toward tomorrow.